has a greater right? Those who need jobs, those who need lumber for homes and businesses, or a small species of owl that environmentalists want to keep from extinction? Whose rights are more important? How can a conflict over land, jobs, and the ultimate destiny of a species be decided? This conflict occurred in the northwest United States beginning when the northern spotted owl was identified as a potentially endangered species in 1973. By 1977, the U.S. Forest Services and the land management agencies began limiting logging of old-growth forests in areas that contained the northern spotted owl. Loggers who made their living from harvesting the forest were in direct conflict with the government's efforts to limit cutting. The nation needed trees to build homes, and the Northwest employed thousands of loggers and others in the forest industry. Beginning in the early 1980s, the conflict escalated. The United States Forest Service in 1986 proposed that nearly 700,000 acres of national forest be preserved to protect the endangered bird. Environmentalists filed petitions to get the spotted owl declared as an endangered. That would bring greater legal protection to the areas where the spotted owl lived. The Forest Service rejects the petition, and United States federal court gets involved in 1988. The Forest Service under President Reagan must reconsider listing the spotted owl as endangered. The states of Washington and Oregon became the focal point of the conflict. In Collinsburg, Oregon, a way for the logging community to protest, a local restaurant began offering cooked spotted owl on its menu. T-shirts were sold that said, "Save a logger, eat an owl." In 1990, over 1,500 Gray Harbor, Oregon residents blocked the highway to protest the owl being given more protection and forest jobs less protection. The protesters changed families first, owls last, sharing their concern over the loss of jobs. In the same year as the Gray Harbor protests, the United States government declared the owl threatened setting aside 3 million acres of land. The conflict goes back and forth with each side filing petitions, protesting in public, and writing to the government. No compromise appears to be working to settle the conflict. In 1993, President Bill Clinton organized a foreign conference in hopes of finding a compromise between the two sides. The goal, as President Clinton explained, ways to find preserved jobs in the forest. He gathered environmentalists, timber industry people, and citizens involved. Everyone sat down at the table to hammer out a compromise. Clinton said, "As we craft a plan, we need to protect the long-term health of our forests, our wildlife, and our waterways. We hold them in trust for future generations. We must never forget the human and economic dimensions of these problems. Where sound management policies and preserve the health of forest lands, timber sales should go forward. The plan should produce a predictable and sustainable level of timber sales and non-timber resources that will not degrade or destroy the environment."
Too many people are being hurt and too many resources are being threatened, and we're going to do our best to turn this away from at least the short-term politics of just trying to avoid the tough decisions.
Clinton appointed a forest ecosystem management assessment team that would complete the study and report back in the spring of 1993. The results became the basis for the Northwest Forest Plan passed in 1994. The Northwest Forest Plan had 5 goals. 1. Never forget human and economic dimensions of the issues. 2. Protect the long-term health of forests, wildlife, and waterways. 3. Focus on scientifically sound, ecological, credible, and legally responsible strategies and implementation. 4. Produce a predictable and sustainable level of timber sales and non-timber resources. 5. Ensure that federal agencies work together. The plan was to limit the harvesting of trees in national parks and provide guidance on over 2 million acres in the Northwest. The Northwest Forest Plan set aside 30% of federal lands. On much of those 7.4 million federal acres, some tree harvesting had already taken place. The compromise reached between those seeking to preserve old-growth forests and species such as the spotted owl and those who sought to harvest needed lumber for jobs and homes was a turning point. Courts used the compromise as a model for other environmental conflicts. Spotted owl became the symbol from the conflict between the two sides, often seen as being a type of joke. The immediate impact of the Northwest Forest Plan was a decrease in the open conflict between the logging industry and environmentalists who sought to save species such as the spotted owl. However, several court cases were brought challenging the law. In 2006, a court case allowed more cutting in the forests that were 80 years or younger.
The Northwest Forest Plan has been successful in preserving forests. However, it has not been entirely successful in stopping the decline in species, including the spotted owl. Jobs in the Northwest in the timber industry have also greatly declined. Some increases in other types of jobs have taken place in those communities. The plan helped change the timber industry and how conservation was approached.
As part of the compromise of the Northwest Forest Plan was that every 5 years the plan would be reviewed and updated with the cooperation of timber industry officials, scientists, environmentalists, and government officers. In conclusion, the Northwest Forest Plan provided an important compromise between those who wanted to preserve the old-growth forests for endangered species and those who needed the timber and the jobs they brought. An important part of the plan that it was able to be modified every 5 years as the people who are deeply involved with the forest can continue to find compromises. Unfortunately, the compromise has not solved the decline in forest and the population of species such as the spotted owl. The amount of lumber for housing and construction has increased, and the demand cannot be met under the conditions of the Northwest Forest Plan. The plan does not solve all the issues or conflicts, but the plan proves that opposite sides can come together, reach for a compromise, and provide hope for the future.